Hi everyone, I'm really happy to be back with this new video. In this video I wanted to talk about the Kali Yuga because it's something that, of course, when we are in the spiritual field we've heard about it. We've seen so much about it. I've seen a lot of things passing by, saying that the Kali Yuga is actually 432,000 years long, and that's the dark age, that's the worst age of all the yugas. And what a horrible perspective that is, to think that we have so many years of darkness ahead of us. But when I was seeing this information, there's something that didn't quite resonate for me. It never really clicked. I just felt it was not in alignment with my own perceptions, my own intuition of what we were going through. I felt that as a collective we were actually ascending to a higher consciousness, and I was feeling that light was coming to the planet more and more, people were awakening, and that we were in this kind of really forward movement and a movement of elevation for humanity. But we must understand also that we are currently in this period, and probably even more so now than like even 10 or 15 years ago, where there's a lot of negativity out there. There is so much negativity coming out, and it's not because the negativity is increasing on this planet and the light is decreasing. It's because it's the shadow aspect of the collective that is rising up. It's rising up so we can transmute it all together, and so this is why we are feeling that there is so much pressure and it's so much more visible than it used to. It's also very chaotic because there are so many like profound changes that we are going through on this planet right now. So of course it's completely normal that this theory that the Kali Yuga lasts 432,000 years could actually be felt by certain people. One day I read the book by Swami Sri Yukteswar, The Holy Science, and in that book he talks about the yugas, the different ages in the Indian spirituality. And I'm going to get into that in a moment, but first of all, who is Sri Yukteswar? He is a great spiritual master from India. He left his body in 1935. He attained the Christ state, which means that after his physical death, he actually resurrected. And he was the guru of the famous Paramahansa Yogananda, who was actually on a mission to bring the yoga science to the West in the 1920s in the US. It started off in the US. Sri Yukteswar was not only a great spiritual master, he was also a scholar. He was very much interested in science, and he was an expert in astronomy and astrology. And the book he wrote, The Holy Science, he actually wrote it in 1894, was commissioned by the great Mahavatar Babaji. He's also called the immortal yogi, the very high being, an avatar actually. And he asked Sri Yukteswar to write this book because he had this idea that it would be a good thing to actually build bridges between the Indian spirituality and the Western spirituality. So there are a lot of comparisons between the Vedas and the Bible in his book, and this was really to prove and to show that all spiritualities and all religions are one in the end. So of course when I read that book, it resonated so much with me. It was the first time that someone wrote something like that, and I just found it really amazing. And in the introduction to the book, The Holy Science, Sri Yukteswar mentions the different yugas, which are the different ages in Indian spirituality. We can also find the same concept of ages, for example, with the Greeks or other civilizations, so it's something that we can really see among different cultures, and there's always this idea of the different cycles that we go through on this planet. He tells us in his book about the precession of the equinoxes, which is a cycle of 24,000 years, and there is an ascending arc of 12,000 years and a descending arc of 12,000 years. And he asserted that this is the movement of the sun revolving around a kind of double star that causes the precession of the equinox. And the thing that is really interesting is that, as I told you, he wrote this book in 1894. At that time, there was very little knowledge concerning the star systems. It was very limited. But today, according to the latest NASA figures, up to 80% of stars could be part of a binary or multiple star system. So that's really interesting. So let's go through all the different yugas together now to have a full picture of what it is. We'll start with the first period, the Kali Yuga, which lasts 1,200 years. And this is the darkest age. This is when the consciousness is focused solely on the physical world and no longer considers the spiritual world. So a very materialistic age. Then we have the second period, which is the Dwapara Yuga, lasting 2,400 years, when human consciousness can begin to perceive the subtle materials and electricities. So when he mentions electricities, so of course it means the electricity, but also waves, vibrations, energies that are at the origin of all creation, and that's the age we are currently in right now. Then we have the third period, which is the Treta Yuga, lasts 3,600 years, and this is when the human understanding can grasp divine magnetism. And finally, the fourth period, which lasts 4,800 years and is the Satya Yuga. This is the complete development of the human being who can grasp everything, even God, the spirit beyond the visible world, and this is also called the golden age of enlightenment. It's also very interesting also to note that between the different yugas, we have transition periods which can last a couple of hundreds of years. So for example, for the Dwapara Yuga, which we are in today, there are 200 years of transition before Dwapara Yuga, before we enter that age, and 200 years when we get out of that age. And for example, for the Kali Yuga, it's more like 100 years before and 100 years after. The Dwapara Yuga, which we are in today, is 2,400 years, but because there are 200 years before and 200 years after, we could say that in total, the real period of Dwapara Yuga is 2,000 years. What is also interesting to note is that there is this ascending movement and then descending movement. So we start off with the Kali Yuga up until the Satya Yuga, the highest age, and then we go back down, descending from the Satya Yuga to the Kali Yuga, all the way back to the bottom, to the darkest age. So as we can see, this is all cyclical. This is a 24,000 year cycle, and it's actually, this phenomenon is actually the fundamental way that the universe, the manifested universe, actually works. It's all cyclical. The darkest period of the Kali Yuga was actually around 500 AD. That was really the lowest point, let's say. That's when there was so much ignorance on Earth. Like humans had completely forgotten who they were. They had no more access to all these spiritual aspects of themselves or knowledge. And there were also a lot of wars going on. So there was a lot of suffering and ignorance. And it's really interesting to note that in the year, around the year 0, as you can see on the image, well, we had Jesus Christ coming in, we had Patanjali with the Yoga Sutras, and we could say that these higher vibrational beings, these higher consciousness beings, actually were really like on a mission to come to Earth in that dark period of the lowest points of the Kali Yuga to bring back the lights for the centuries and the thousands of years that would come after them. So that's really interesting to note. And also we can see that there is this 100-year transition from the Kali Yuga around 1600, and that's when electricity and magnetic forces were discovered. That's also the period where there was Galileo, Newton. We discovered the steam engine. So a lot of things were coming to the surface in that period. That was the transition period towards the Dwapara Yuga, which started in 1894. So Sri Yukteswar actually wrote the book The Holy Science the same year that the Dwapara Yuga officially started. So now, why was there this mistake or this miscalculation that happened? Well, precisely because it was during that period of Kali Yuga, which is the dark age, this is the age where there was no more knowledge, where humans were cut off from the spiritual knowledge, that even the sages of India in that time, they didn't have access anymore to this ancient knowledge. So they didn't understand exactly how it worked. And they started also figuring out that they kind of misread the Indians' almanacs at the time. And they actually found out that the Kali Yuga lasted 1,200 years, but they couldn't explain it. So they thought that 1,200 years were not ordinary earth years, but divine years. So 12 divine months of 30 divine days, each divine day equivalent to a solar year on our globe, on our planet. So according to them, when they did this calculation, the 1,200 years of Kali Yuga were 432,000 years on Earth. But Sri Yukteswar tells us that if we want to arrive to the correct calculation, we need to take the position of the vernal equinox in the spring of 1894 AD. And today the autumnal equinox falls in the sign of Virgo, and if we look at the sun at the point of the spring day equinox, it actually appears facing the end of the constellation of Pisces. And because the Earth's axis changes inclination over several millennia, soon the sun will be actually facing Aquarius. And that's why we say that we are entering this age of Aquarius. The Dwapara Yuga, the age that we are actually in right now, is the age of the perception of the fine structures of matter and the electricities. And as I mentioned before, when he says electricities, it actually means electricity, but also vibration, wavelengths, etc., energies in general. So we are perceiving more and more this subtle aspect of matter, and we are actually realizing that it is at the origin of creation. The age of Pisces began around 499 AD, and it lasts 2,000 years. And 2,000 years later, we are going to enter the age of Aquarius, so in 2,499 approximately. And as you can see, we are in these transition years, so we are at the very end of the age of Pisces and progressively entering this new age of Aquarius. So I actually asked myself, why is this information about the Kali Yuga so strong, and why do so many people believe that and some people don't even question it? And I started to understand that it is probably because as a collective we have this, conscious or unconscious most of the time, addiction to negativity, to drama, and to chaos. And this is the way that we were programmed, actually. So as we were little already, we were told that life is difficult. We were shown sometimes cartoons where there were dramatic things happening, traumatic things happening, like, Bambi or the Lion King, which is pretty traumatic when you're a small child. That's just an example, but globally we are surrounded, we are inundated with negativity all the time. Whether it's through school, whether it's through our families that are also transmitting their own negative beliefs to us, and of course through mainstream media that is always throwing negativity and fearful announcements out there. So of course, when we are still connected to that energy, we can only be fearful, and it is on purpose, of course, that they are throwing all this negative stuff at our face, so we are maintained in this state of fear and at a very negative state. Because of this programming, we are almost like magnetized towards negativity instead of something that is more positive for us. And for example, sometimes it makes me laugh because people tell me, I don't watch the news anymore, I don't watch mainstream media anymore, I'm completely detached from that. But still, I'm fearful of the future because some people say it's going to be chaotic, and some people say there are bad things that are going to happen on this planet, and war and things and whatever. And I'm asking them, where are you getting this information from? And they say, like whistleblowers or certain channels or mediums that are throwing also all sorts of fearful stuff, information all the time at their face. But it's the same energy. you know, it's not because it's alternative that it's not still fear-based information. So again, we need to be more aware and conscious of what do we connect to. And it's not always easy because there is this pull towards negativity. Like for example, when you walk on the street and you see people fighting, usually everyone's going to turn around, it's going to watch the scene, you know. It's like we are really attracted to the drama. This is like almost human nature, I should say. So we really need to be mindful and more mindful about that, and simply ask ourselves, you know, where am I putting my attention towards? Because where attention goes, energy flows, as we say. And so when we are focusing our attention on something, we are giving our energy to that thing. So again, this is how there is this vicious cycle of negativity and chaos and fear-based feelings and thoughts and patterns on this planet, because it's like it's feeding itself, you know, on its own, until we say no more. Until we say, I had enough of this negativity, I'm going to choose something more positive and elevating for myself. So we always have this free will to choose what we focus on, what we connect to. But again, why is there this strong pull towards negativity? Why is it sometimes something that is, you know, like we can't control in a way? And we need only also to connect to the collective mental field sometimes on this planet, and we can feel and perceive how negative it is. So of course, when we're connected to that, and we are all connected together, so it's difficult to be completely you know, cut off from that. But when we feel that, then we see also the amount of negativity that really weighs on this planet. But there is a way out, and the way out, as I said, is because when we are not aware of our own shadow side, our own shadow aspect, when we sometimes suppress that shadow aspect, we don't want to see it, we don't want to watch it, we don't want to, you know, even open the door, that actually creates a resonance with the existing negativity out there, which is of course an illusion. When we are connected to negativity, it is an illusion. But nevertheless, it is a very, very strong illusion on this planet, because so many of us are addicted to it. And we are addicted to it because, as I said, there is this resonance within us. So when we are on a path, on a spiritual path, or let's say also a self-development path, we realize that when we actually see our shadow aspects, when we embrace them, when we love them, when we send them light, when we transmute them, then we actually transform ourselves and we transform our vibration, so we are closer to the light of truth of who we are. And when we are more in our lights, more in our truth, then we also, it's mathematical, you know, our vibration is going to be attracted and attracting positive things and not negative things. So it is absolutely crucial to do this work, this personal work. And also I want to say it's our choice. We have every day the choice to connect to what is best for us. And it's definitely our responsibility. So no excuses anymore. In this transition toward the age of Aquarius, we have the opportunity to align ourselves with these incredible transformative energies that we are going through right now, in order to be on this path towards a higher consciousness. And we have this opportunity to know ourselves truly, know truly who we are, where we come from, and where we are going as a collective. We have this opportunity to connect back to our heart centers, the heart consciousness, which will open up the door to all the mysteries of the cosmos. And so we can rise up again as a divine civilization, a higher civilization, as it existed on Earth before us, as everything is cyclical, in order to get closer and closer to the ultimate truth of who we are, to get closer and closer to our divine identity, to the indescribable or the unnameable. Sat Nam. Thank you for your attention.